Wilson Morales from Black Film TV. How are you guys?
Good. How's it
Good.
going?
How are you? I follow you. You know.
Hey, appreciate it.
Yes.
I'm going to start off with you, Jim. Obviously, you've been on this project for over a decade. Obviously, it went from film to series. How much more did it change from telling a film version to now a series, and what did you want to add in?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it's actually almost 2.5 decades. I started working on this in the late 90s. It was my thesis project at USC. Okay. And it's funny, to answer your question two ways. One, my perspective on that has all changed a lot. Obviously, I'm 25 years older than I was when I started working on the show.
Wow.
When I started working on the show, I was like, honestly, I was like deep in my own addictions and partying. And I got sober in 2001. And so a lot of the show deals with issues of mental health and addiction that I certainly relate to much differently from the perspective of having, being sober for 22 years and being in recovery that whole time. I see this story just like a lot different from I saw it originally. The other thing is when we looked at it in terms of making it as a movie, the 2-hour version was just like, it felt like it was just going to be all plot because there's so much of the caper that takes up the time, And so what we really wanted, and I think that the format of a limited series does, is it gives you much more time with the characters. It allows you to delve into the Panthers. It allows you to contextualize all of the issues, with the Panthers and the characters. And so to me, it just felt like, yeah, this has to be a 6 to 8 hour version of this story. I don't think it can be done, at least not well, in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. And for you, Janine, obviously, there are going to be a lot of people that don't know so much about Huey outside of him being a figure, Black Panther. What did you want to add in so that people can get an idea, even though it's not a Cradle to the Grave series?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But, people are going to get an idea as to who Huey Newton is.
We wanted to get a snapshot of his legacy, and we wanted people to know that beyond policing the police, using the Second Amendment, carrying guns to stop police brutality, which they did. And when they went onto the state grounds with guns, it changed literally gun control for the Republicans. We wanted people to understand that's what happened, but more so, we wanted people to know that Huey Newton became actively sought after by the government when he decided to try to feed pancakes and breakfast to children. He thought that every kid in this country, especially the kids in Black communities, needed to have food. They needed to be fed before they went into a classroom so that they could actually retain information. He thought that's the only way you can get leaders. He wanted people to have access to medical care. He wanted people to have access to ambulances, to housing. And all of those issues started to work. It started to regenerate and to grow a community. And that's what the government feared. They did not want that change. And Hoover, made Huey, basically public enemy number one. And that is something that I really felt like people needed to understand, because every time a figure wants change, every time we have someone who will put their body on the line, for some reason around the world, governments look at those people as threats to the system. And we were in a culture at the time, Malcolm X had been killed, Martin Luther King had been killed, revolutionaries were not in vogue per se. They were not in vogue, but these young people didn't care. They said, we are going to die trying to make the world a better place and trying to make it better for our Black community. And as you know, we're in a fight right now to just get Black history taught. We're in a fight right now to get, books about Black people said. So for us, a caper is going to entertain people. But when they watch the show, they're going to go, oh my goodness, when they see the flashbacks of Huey Newton and how the Panthers emerged and what they were fighting, they're going to learn something that they might not learn at all now in schools.
What made André the right choice for this role?
I mean, seriously, André Holland is one of the greatest actors walking the face of the earth. I mean, he is phenomenal. He brings it every time. He is layered. He is nuanced. He has so much going on. Even when he's not speaking, you can feel his presence and you can feel him embody a character. And the thought of him playing Huey Newton was just, there was no other. And it was an undeniable choice. We found out that he was interested. And of course, that's who we wanted. It's like Huey is such a huge figure in our culture. To have anyone less than or anyone that you're kind of questioning, it would not have been correct. And so he was it.
Now, a lot of people are going to be watching this. For those who do not know the story of Huey, obviously we can easily go to Wikipedia, and some of what you see here is not on Wikipedia. So let's talk about the story instead of going from a cradle to the grave. But this particular story, why this one to showcase for those who are going to get a better sense of Huey as opposed to like watching him in a scene or two of a movie.
Yeah. Listen, there needs to be a story on the Black Panthers. It could be a story as big as The Crown, 6 seasons on all of the epic players and figures within the movement. This is a chapter of Huey's life. It is about his escape. When the FBI was after him, he came to LA. He winded up going to a movie producer, Bert Schneider's house. Bert, was part of the rebellious Hollywood, left who were trying to make social change. And so he assisted Huey in coming up with a plan to get him out of the country, and that was to Cuba. We literally said, this is like a entertainment value. This is the arc for entertainment purposes, a caper. Wilson, you're sitting here trying to make television, but everybody would rather look at their telephones. You got to keep people entertained. So the caper was the entertainment. But the notion that young people do not know who Huey Newton is made us feel like we had to do flashbacks to contextualize him, the movement, why the Black Panthers started, how Huey Newton and Bobby Seale started it together, and how they went from policing the police with carrying arms to then changing. Because of them policing the police, gun control laws changed, because when Huey wasn't there at the state capitol, we put him there just so we could quickly show you what was occurring. But once the Black Panthers, marched on the state capitol when Reagan was there, the laws changed on gun control. So from that, we wanted you to learn that Huey then changed and said, not only should we be policing the police, we should move the movement toward the social programs. A lot of people in American schools, they don't know about the social programs. They do not know that COINTELPRO and the FBI were after Huey and the Panthers because they wanted to change the world and basically feed pancakes to kids. They wanted kids to have a full stomach so that they could go to school and learn. And we just have not learned this in our educational system. And we have not learned, the threat that kind of caused in the 70s or the late 60s, trying to get economic change, medical care for everyone, housing programs, ambulance programs. I mean, all of these programs were at Huey's desire to make it better for the Black community, brown community, and for white people who were lower class.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's a bit of humor in the series, so some people, you think of Huey Newton and the Black Panthers, you don't think of humor, but you added it in here. Why so?
Yeah. Listen, people will argue with me about this. It's hard to get people to watch a biopic nowadays. I mean, it's hard. You are competing with TikTok. You're competing with Instagram. People, it's a heavy world right now. It's a very heavy world. And so to get people to laugh, to get people to smile, to get people in their seats, like that helps. The funny, ironic thing about all of this is that Huey was funny. People who know him will say he had a sense of humor. Clearly, the movement and what Black people were facing was not funny at all. But they were human beings going through a world. They were young people, loving, having friendships, ups and downs of life, while also trying to fight for the betterment of Black people. So the humor, while it's really laced in the caper side of it, we definitely continue to cut back and forth by contextualizing it. And I get people are going to have something to say about that. People are going to be like, you cannot laugh at this moment. But we're not laughing at the moment or the movement. The Black people, the Panthers putting their bodies on the line for Black people is not a laughing matter. It was serious business, and they did it for us to be able to sit here right now and have our jobs the way we have it. They did it for us. But the humor adds levity and keeps you interested and engaged with the caper, so you do not feel like this is a history lesson. And I think that that's the way some of the stories need to be told, so that kids actually watch them.
Oh yeah, today's, because of obviously the amount of streamers out there and how many shows get noticed, whether it's 8 episodes or 22 episodes, it's a battle as far as seeing, what's the selling aspect.
Exactly.
What's going to get people's attention if it's a weekly series, which is what Apple is great at. Say, okay, what's going to keep them coming back week after week as opposed to wanting everything all at once?
Right.
This is a period piece. Was it challenging trying to recreate some scenes and getting all the wardrobe so that way the watchful eye is not calling you out and says, wait a minute, I saw Starbucks on the floor.
Luckily, the first 2 episodes, who set the look of the show was Don Cheadle. He's meticulous. He woke up every day, like at 5 a.m. with his eye on making sure this felt like the 70s. And it had that look and that crispness. Him and our DP, Suki, they made a palette that was grainy in the late 60s, a little less grain, and then came into color later. They were very, very meticulous. In terms of production designer, Warren Allen Young did the look. He's from Fargo and American Crime. So he's just absolutely stellar in creating worlds. And Gersha Phillips, who we all know, who did the amazing job in Woman King, she came because of her relationship with Don. She had done Talk to Me with Don years ago in Toronto with Casey Lemons. She found out that Don was doing this, and she, jumped at the chance to work with him again. So we were lucky when we went to Toronto and to Columbia to be able to have Don Cheadle and to have his vision and his expertise to kind of lead the ship. And therefore, all these great artisans followed suit.
What do you want audiences to get after seeing this one, to get a better understanding of Huey Newton at a certain time period? What is the goal at the end of the day?
Listen, I think the goal is so that people understand him at this time period, but they lean in to learn about him and what the Panthers did back then and what they did for our community. They sometimes get lost in, our reverence for Martin Luther King, for Malcolm X, and for all of the other great leaders that forged the way during the civil rights. The Black Panther Party did it as well. And so if anything we can get from this is that young people will actually go look at all of the documentaries on them. They will go read the books. Right now we are facing a lot of the books that are getting banned or literally on race. There's a lot of actions and measures being made throughout the countries to stop us from learning about racial relations in this country. So if anybody watches this series and gets interested in the Black Power movement, in the Black Panthers, in the civil rights movement, in all of it, we would have done our jobs. Because the truth is, the future leaders, the people that are going to continue to make change in this world are the young people. And those young people, hopefully there's a filmmaker out there right now that will literally take the baton and get that 6-year epic show done. We are lucky that we're talking and have developed a relationship with Frederica Newton, who runs the Huey P. Newton Foundation in Oakland. She is continuing to do the work. and to forge ahead. And she needs all the support she can get, because the revolution is continuing. You know, the work we need to do within the community and in this country has not been finished.
You, having worked on a number of shows, and obviously we know what you did with Claws, after you finished production on this one, what did you learn skill set wise, you know, moving forward to whatever project you do next that will help you out?
Listen, I learned to be malleable. You've got to be able to, you know, we write things and we do things, and then they get in the hands of great actors and they get in the hands of great artists and directors. You have to continuously be collaborative. Jim Hecht and I set out on this trek together. I've been on it for 6 years, and we work tirelessly every single night to get this done. And it would not have gotten done unless we listened to the collaboration and the voices of our team. And it didn't matter where we were, whether we were in Toronto, whether we were in Colombia, Cartagena. Everyone came because they were moved by Huey Newton. They were moved by what these young people did. So what I learned was always be open to notes, be open to thoughts, be open to ideas. Revolution has happened throughout this world with all different races. A lot of people looked to the Panthers, they looked to the civil rights movement as they forged their own, you know, fights within their own countries. And so I learned just to not think you know everything. You actually have to be open to the daily lessons that are being brought to you.
What's next for you after this? This is shot. This is done. It's coming out. What's next?
Listen, I have a company at Warner Brothers called Folding Chair Productions, based on the Shirley Chisholm quote, you know, if they don't have a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. We have numerous projects in the works at Warner Brothers. I've got great champions there with, you know, Channing Dungey, and I just can't wait for you to see them. I can't announce them yet, but they are coming, and I could
there's the season pro. How to say nothing.
Yes.
You know, like she ain't giving out enough. She just gives you a little taste. I got something, but I can't talk about it.
I can't talk about it, but I'm excited.
Hey, right now we've got the Big Cigar. Let's keep this going. Let's people talk about it. Let's, you know, it's a weekly show, which is great because it can always build up. You know,
Yes.
if it's not episode 1, maybe episode 3 and so forth. You know,
Yes.
sometimes you want the weekly because the weekly is the one that gets people entertained. Sometimes, in my opinion, you know, there are shows that come out binge worthy, and then 2 weeks later, there's 30 more shows.
Exactly. I think people will get hooked and they'll see it to the end because it's worth it. And André Holland just brings it. He is epic.
Mm-hmm. With that being said, congrats on this. I'm
Thank
sure
you
I'll
so
talk
much.
to you down the road. Let's talk
Okay.
about the Big Cigar. Take care.
Yes. Take care. Thanks so much.
Yes.